In the heart of a time marked by corrupt kings and difficult days where hunger, misery, and injustice seemed to dominate the scene in Israel, a story emerges that has crossed centuries with a powerful message of faith, hope, and miracles. This is the story of Elisha and the widow's oil, an episode that is not only moving but also carries profound lessons for today. Picture a desperate woman, a widow, with no resources and 2 sons about to be taken as slaves to pay off a debt. In her despair, she doesn't seek help from powerful men, but instead, she turns to the man of God, Elisha. And this is where everything begins to change. What Elisha does next seems simple, almost strange, but it's exactly that which makes this story so astonishing. Elisha, with the calmness of someone who trusts fully in divine power, doesn't offer gold, silver, or any typical solution. He asks the woman what she has in her house, and her answer is almost heartbreaking. Just a small jar of oil, that's all. Tiny flask. Something that, in the eyes of the world, had no value. But it is precisely from the little that God begins to work the great. Elisha gives an unusual instruction. The widow must go and borrow as many empty jars as she can from her neighbors. Not just a few, but many. She must then enter her house, close the door, and start pouring oil from her little jar into each one. This is when the miracle begins. The oil starts to flow and flow and flow. With every jar that fills up, the widow's heart beats faster. She watches the impossible happen right before her eyes. The jar that seemed insignificant now produces enough to fill dozens of containers, and with each full vessel, a new hope is born. Her sons, once threatened with slavery, now witness the miracle that sets them free. When the last jar is filled, the oil stops. Not before, not after, only when there was no more space to receive. That detail is fascinating. The miracle didn't depend only on faith, but also on preparation. The amount she received was proportional to how much she was willing to seek. The number of jars determined the size of the blessing. A clear lesson that active faith that moves even in the face of absurdity, is rewarded in a supernatural way. With the oil in hand, Elisha instructs the widow to sell what was produced, pay off her debts, and live on the rest. And so, something that began with despair ends in freedom and abundant provision. But this story goes beyond the physical miracle. It teaches us to see value in what seems small, to trust, even when the solution seems strange, and about the power of closing the door, withdrawing into a private moment with God, away from distractions so the miracle can happen. The oil also represents anointing, the divine presence, something that flows when there is space, when there is faith, and when we are willing to obey even without understanding. This episode is more than just a lesson about miracles. It shows us that God sees our despair, knows our pain, and meets us where we are. He doesn't require great resources to act, only a heart willing to obey. If that woman had ignored Elisha or been too ashamed to ask for jars, the miracle would never have occurred. But she trusted. It was that trust that changed her and her family's destiny. In times when many feel trapped, without resources, burdened by emotional or spiritual debts, this story echoes as a powerful reminder. What little you have may be exactly what God will use to change everything. And maybe today, you feel like that widow, afraid, surrounded by problems, thinking you have nothing of value in your hands. But pay attention. Elisha's question still echoes. What do you have in your house? What do you have in your hands? It may seem like little, but in God's hands, that little becomes much. Maybe it's a talent, an idea, or a simple act of faith. The miracle begins when you decide to take the first step. And don't forget the most important detail. The more jars you bring, the more oil will be poured. The more faith and willingness you have, the greater God's action will be. The choice is yours. You can look at the jar and see only limitation, or you can do what the widow did and see in it the beginning of something extraordinary. So the next time you feel like it's the end, remember, this might be the beginning of your miracle. Close the door, seek God's presence, and prepare the jars of your life, because the oil, it's about to flow. And when it flows, nothing will ever be the same. Because where there is faith, obedience, and willingness, the impossible becomes reality. This is the story of Elisha and the widow's oil. A simple story, yet it carries eternal power. May it inspire you to believe, to act, and to expect the supernatural, even when everything seems lost. If this message touched your heart, share this video with someone who needs a miracle. Leave a like so more people can be reached. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any more inspiring stories like this one. Turn on the notification bell and comment below. What is the oil you have in your house? Let's spread faith, hope, and transformation together. See you in the next video.